What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Dipped in Tone. I'm Rhett.
I'm Zach.
And we're back. Again, still new year, new us.
Yeah, it's funny because since shifting to recording these things in advance and like planning, then it feels like I've forgotten how to do this.
Yeah, you mean like actually doing this like a real pro podcast and taking it seriously?
I know.
It's weird.
It's a funny thing. So I just saw you yesterday, but how
literally
you doing?
Yesterday, 24 hours ago, basically to the dot. You and I were at one Carter Vintage Guitars drink, and what were we doing over there?
We were playing a whole smattering of stuff, from literally the most expensive thing you could possibly buy to the most, not the most entry level, but the most standard of standard entry level instruments. Yeah,
I'm not sure if the video will be live on my channel by the time this goes up, because I'm trying to bank some episodes. I'm going to be traveling in February, March, going over to Europe for a few weeks. But basically, we had access to a few late 50s Les Pauls that were all beat up and dinged up and scratched and old and ugly and everything. Terrible.
Yeah, not worth it.
And comparing it to your Blueberry over there. Do you have it with you? Where is it?
It's in the shop. It's in its bag in another room. But yeah, my bright blue Epiphone Les Paul Standard. And then we compared it to some other things as well.
Dude, it's fun. It's a good time.
It's great.
And I bought some gear from Carter yesterday. But...
You did talk about that.
Well, okay. Now, okay. One of them
going to be... Is it one of them shill?
Yeah, one's going to be a shill, but the other thing I'm going to talk about, and I'll have to post a picture of it because I already patched everything into my system over here. But for a while, I've been looking for a good reverb tank, good Fender reverb tank. And we actually grabbed one to film with yesterday because I like having some reverb. And it's just a 70s silver panel Fender tube reverb tank. And it was on consignment, and I got it for a good deal. And for me, it's less about having it for guitar, and it's more about using it to record and mix with. I want to put vocals and stuff through it, just have a huge, lush, springy, drippy reverb.
Right.
So, yeah.
Sweet. Well, that's fun.
Yeah.
I have been just head down on the keyboard, designing circuits for. Hopefully, they'll be able to see the light of day in the next couple months. But we got some fun things cooking, and I've been because the guys have been killing it. Matthew's been killing it, and every time there's an order, we just ship it. And so we're like,
what do we do now?
We have a standing inventory. What do we do? So now I'm just trying to design more stuff.
Should we plug the thing you and I are doing yet, or should we wait?
Not yet.
Okay,
not yet.
It's not the fuzz. We're doing something different.
It's well.
Yeah, it has something to do. Oh shit, it's patched in. Never mind. I was going to do a whole thing, but it's patched in. You wanna thank the sponsor of today's episode?
Absolutely. Today's sponsor is the same as last time's sponsor. That's Sweetwater. And today we're going to talk a little bit about the gear exchange. Now, you might remember we talked about it, and I did do this. I bought this Voodoo Lab analog chorus on the Sweetwater Gear Exchange, but their gear exchange is just their used gear shopping website.
Yeah, basically it's their classified section, if you will. And the thing that I like about it is, oftentimes when you're selling gear, when I sell gear, it's generally in an effort to purchase new gear or to get something a step ahead or something different. And you can basically sell your gear on the marketplace and then use that money that you earn on Sweetwater with no seller's fee. So it's actually a pretty cool system.
That's right. Yeah, and it's the fee if you want to take the payout, to your bank or whatever is pretty minor, and it's but the fact that you can get the money with no transaction fees and just bank that and put it towards something new. That's a pretty smart thing, Sweetwater.
Yeah,
so,
it's pretty genius. And when you tie that in with their guitar gallery and the whole inspection, especially if you're selling a guitar, you're selling a couple guitars to move up to something, you could basically just waive the seller's fee and go straight into a new guitar from Guitar Gallery.
That's right. So go to sweetwater.com/dippedintone. That's our link. And you can get links to all this great stuff. I just bought, I'm trying to be like JHS. Look, I got a mic
Look
mute.
at you. I have one, but it's on the
another,
floor.
Oh, that's right. And I got another power conditioner from Sweetwater. I've been buying all sorts of stuff. So
Yeah,
check it out.
Little pro tip: if you're in the content creation world, get you one of these little rolls, mic mute switches. I have it for my shotgun. So because there's nothing worse than when you're like playing guitar and you can hear the plink of the strings coming through the mic on top of your sound. So I use that all the time.
There you go.
Also, I want to shout out to our Patreon. We are in the Discord chat live. If you want to join us live when we are recording episodes, you can join the Patreon. This is also where we get our rigs to dip. So all links and information are down in the description, all the different tiers you can join up. And that's how you get access to the Dipped in Tone Discord server, which is pretty active.
Yeah, and you can get special discounts on my website, Rhett's stuff, Premier Guitar's stuff, and depending on what level you want to be at. And there's some fun little perks when you move up the tiers, so check it out.
Yeah, everything's linked down below. Thanks to Sweetwater for sponsoring today. Thanks to the patrons and everyone in the Discord. And with that, you want to dip somebody's rig?
Well, before we do that, let's pay our respects to two heroes that have fallen recently. Mr. Jeff Beck and Mr. David Crosby recently passed away, and I never got to meet Jeff Beck, unfortunately. I did get to see him play once, but I did get to meet David Crosby, and he was a delightful human being and complimented my guitar playing, which is something I will never forget. So
did you meet him at Carter Drink?
I met him at Carter, and he was just there hanging out, and I was in a room playing guitar for some people, like demoing it to try to sell some things, and he stuck his head in the window of one of the demo rooms and just stared at me. And then he was like, ah. And then he told some other people working there, like, hey, that guy's really good. I was like, oh my God.
Wow.
But he was a super nice guy. And what a talent,
Yeah, I never met either one of them, but I did see Jeff Beck play one time at Crossroads in 2019. Me and my dad went out there for a father-son trip because, I grew up watching those Crossroads DVDs, and me and my dad would buy the whole DVD set whenever they would come out and like sit and watch them together. So when they did 2019, we bought tickets and went, and the first night Jeff Beck headlined, and we were there with Rick Beato, and he was friends or is friends with the front of house engineer for Jeff Beck, who was Dave Natal, who still mixes on an analog Sony console, by the way. I saw him last year. He was mixing front of house for the Black Crowes when they came through, and I got to go see both Jeff Beck and the Black Crowes from the front of house booth. And just a quick aside here, props to Dave, because in a very digital world of mixing front of house shows, he's still using an old like Sony board from the 80s, and no digital screens, no presets. It's all just knobs, faders, and VU meters. And I mean, it sounds great. And dude's been running front of house for like the Rolling Stones for 20 years and everything. So, but nice. That was something I'll never forget, is being able to watch Jeff Beck for the first time standing next to the console. And for those of you that saw him live, you know what I'm talking about. It was, nobody sounds like Jeff Beck. It's impossible. You can't do it.
No. Yeah, I saw him. So lucky. I won tickets from Lightning 100 in Nashville to see him at the Ryman.
Wow.
And
nice.
Where the seats were, it felt like they were perfectly aligned with the top two speakers of his slant 4x12, because he was just playing like a Marshall half stack, and those top two speakers, it seemed like they were pointed right at me. And it sounded so good. I mean, and I've listened to Jeff Beck for years. I'm not a huge connoisseur of all of his music, but I do respect him and am enamored by his guitar playing. But seeing him live was so just awe-inspiring, and it was an incredible experience.
Yeah, I think it was Tyler from Music Is Win tweeted when he died that was like, who the best guitar player is when all the best guitar players are saying he's the best guitar player. And
right.
I think that was true of Jeff Beck. He was like your favorite guitar player's favorite guitar player. Yeah. So both him and David Crosby will be missed. So
absolutely. Well, on a lighter note, let's dip a rig. Here we go. I think you'll like this one. A BAM.
Nope, still waiting for it to come through. Ooh, I
Okay,
do indeed like this one.
let me get the email about this. Here it is. Okay, this is from Mr. Ryan Patterson, and he's a new patron and just discovered the show. And he said this is the 2-guitar version of his rig, and it's just for like playing with friends. And so what we have here, ladies and gentlemen, is an original 1959 Gibson ES345 handed down from his father.
Wow.
That he grew up playing that guitar on and off. And then he also has a Eric Johnson rosewood board Strat, which is a fabulous Strat in its own right. A 62 Bassman head with a Bassman cab loaded with 70s Celestion G12H speakers, and on his board, real nice board here. We've got the Strymon OB1, the Sunset, the Deco, the Dig, the Lex, the Blue Sky. He has a radial switcher, a original CE2, a mini Tube Screamer, Polytune, and I guess that's an Ernie Ball volume, but the jacks are on the
jacks
side.
on the side, which is weird. Is that an expression? Perhaps could be. Does Ernie Ball do like a dual expression? Because it could be a dual expression with two different.
Maybe so. He doesn't mention it. He says that the Big Shot, the radial ABY box is switching channels on the Bassman because they're in phase with one another, so you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
But no, he doesn't mention what that is. But yeah, it looks like it might be wired to the Lex. I think that's what it is.
So
it's
I think
probably
that
an
probably expression. Yeah. Wow. Okay. That 335.
345.
Wait. Oh, I didn't. Yeah. Okay. It's the stereo
it's got
switch, the Veritone switch
this,
on the. Yeah.
The split parallelogram inlays, and gold hardware.
Wow. So that's 59. So that's got PAFs in it. Correct.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. It's all there. I mean, come on. What do you?
It's real good.
And the fact that it was handed down from his dad. You said.
Yeah.
The thing I liked about the 59 335s that I wish they would have kept is the long pick guard.
I love that. I love how it goes right down to the ABR.
Yeah, because mine is a 61 reissue 335, right? But it has the short guard, and it's not an ugly guitar by any means. But when you look at, I just think the long guard fits the guitar better because it's a big guitar. It's a big body,
Right. And you have to think, when that guitar came out, the other guitars that they were making were huge hollow bodies that all had gigantic pick guards on them. But yeah, I mean, if you've never had the opportunity to play any vintage ES3 whatever guitar, they really are just there's the joke that's what's the best Les Paul ever made, the ES335. And so like that sort of thing is like once you experience it firsthand, it's kind of hard to go back to some other guitars. The only thing about those guitars that are funny is because they have the Veritone, they're out of phase in the middle position. And sometimes, well, hold on. No, scratch that. ES355s, because most of them are stereo. Excuse me. Never mind.
I've always struggled on the differences between 335, 45, and 55 and the various models. I know the 45s and 55s have the Veritones and everything, but
right. So the ES3 355 is basically the Les Paul custom of that lineage.
The electric Spanish line.
Right. So it has an ebony board, blocks, more ornate binding. Yeah, I mean that's the biggest thing is the ebony blocks and the vintage ones were usually stereo. So then you could buy that vintage Gibson stereo amp and send the neck to one channel and the bridge to another channel. Is wacky. Very
practical and usable for sure.
Right.
Eric Johnson Strat, those are great. I almost bought one of those 10 years ago when I ended up buying the Mayer signature Strat that I have. It came down between that one and an Eric Johnson Strat. Dude, those EJ Strats are great, and they're
really good.
Pretty affordable still, right? I mean, because they made a ton of them.
Yeah, and I mean, like that essentially is like custom shop spec, but on a standard production spec instrument, and they're really great.
Yeah. I love an ebony board Strat too. Yeah, the amp. So that's an Oxblood Bassman. I mean, dude.
So yeah, 62. So it's a brown panel.
Mm-hmm.
And then the cab, he says is recovered, but yeah, vintage looking Fender cab, but loaded with Celestians. I mean, like those Bassmans, any early Bassmans like this that have the normal and the bass channel, they're so close to a Marshall.
Yeah.
They really are, and they just rip when you crank them. So.
Yeah. And did he say if that one's modded or stock? Because I know a lot of these were modded to within an inch of their life.
Yeah, it doesn't say.
Okay.
But I mean, I feel like with this pedal board and all the options he's got there, you just need something loud that works and sounds good.
So the pedal board. Okay. Obviously, we've got a Strymon fan here.
Yes, sir.
I too am a Strymon fan, and I've owned. Let's see, the OB1. I used to have one of those. I have the Deco, but I've never owned the Sunset, the Dig, the Lex, or the Blue Sky.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think about the board situation?
Honestly, like if you had to cover a lot of ground, and you want to do like anything in your head, I think for the most part, with most folks, could get done with this. Sunset is an awesome overdrive pedal. Mm-hmm. It can do so much, and then the Dig is again a fabulous delay. The Lex is a killer rotary. It's like, what can't you do with this? And then you couple in the Tube Screamer and the CE2, and there you go. You have like a smorgasbord of like every classic guitar tone almost.
Yeah,
really?
basically. And I'm happy to see the Lex on there, which is like the Leslie emulator, because I feel like Leslie is sort of a slept on, like rotary is a slept on effect for guitar. Sure. There's a few guys like Josh Smith that really rely on it and do awesome stuff with it, but a lot of people don't use it, and you should, man. It's really cool. You can do a lot of cool stuff with a rotary effect.
Yeah.
Obviously the Deco on the board, I'm a massive fan of. Anytime you see a Deco, I have to give bonus points for that.
Yeah. The rotary thing is funny though, because I feel like once you hear a real one, and have you played guitar through a rotary? It's like no pedal compares.
Well, yeah, because you can't. It's a different thing of like, it's just the physics of mimicking a rotary coming out of a 112 or a 212 speaker cabinet versus an actual spinning rotary speaker, or a pair of like a horn and a drum spinning. Like it's a completely different thing.
Yeah, it's a remarkable experience if you ever get to try it. Like anybody listening, please, if someone says, "Hey, you want to play this?" Please just take the time and do it.
So remind me when we're done dipping this rig. I stumbled into like 2 weeks ago. I think I sent you a polo of this, a pseudo stereo rotary effect that was a complete accident that kind of blew my mind. So, okay, so I like the board. I like the Strymon stuff. I am a little like, I kind of wish it wasn't all Strymon. That's a little weird to me. I don't know why. I mean, all the Strymon stuff is great. There's so much other great stuff out there other than just Strymon. I would tell Ryan to explore a little bit. Like, it seems like we're kind of stuck on the Strymon brand train here a little bit. So I'd say keep the Deco, keep the Lex, keep the Blue Sky. The Dig is cool. The Dig is like their digital delay.
Yeah, like a digital rack delay.
Yeah, which is cool. You can do a lot of cool stuff with that. The Sunset I've played. It's really good. It's all digital, right? The Sunset's a digital overdrive, but it sounds good. It works. I don't know why. It just kind of like, That's what it makes me do is,
It's an odd juxtaposition between, like, if you didn't look at the pedal board, you would see this guitar in an amp situation and be like, oh, hell.
Yeah.
What pedals you need? And you see that and you're like, oh, okay.
Okay.
But he says he does like funky jazz, bass rock, blues, and root stuff, and then some 80s infused chorus clean stuff. So, like, I don't know. I get it. He says he's a sucker for deals on Strymon pedals, so he probably like nab all these at a good price.
Okay.
And I mean, hell, if it isn't convenient, they all sit right next to each other and plug in. I mean,
yeah, it's a thing. I would just say, Ryan, explore the space a little bit. Explore the
How about
pedals.
some Mythos on that board?
Hey, brother, let me tell you something. I got this buddy built pedals, Mythos. Good God, look out! It's pretty good. All right.
What do you think?
I'm trying to decide if I'm deducting points for the all Strymon bottom row there or not. I mean,
I thought you were going to deduct for the mini Tube Screamer.
I'm just gonna ignore that and pretend it's not there. I mean, no, honestly. So here's the deal. In this context, I get the tube screamer thing. I do, because Fender amp,
Strat, I know, blah, blah.
Strat, mid scooped amp. Like
that's not mid scoop. That amp has plenty of mids. There's no
yeah,
scoop.
yeah. Whatever. I get it. I'll allow it on this one. The all Strymon thing is bugging me though. Love the guitars, love the amp, love the category of effects you've picked. You've curated a really nice combination of sounds.
You're stalling. Come on.
9 flat, 9.0. I'm deducting a point for all Strymon.
I'll give it to him. 9.1. There's your point back.
Price is Right rules.
That's right. $1, Bob.
No,
okay.
I do like it. I love the 345, the Strat, the Basement, and the pedal board's cool. Just explore the space a little bit.
Hey, that's just like your opinion, man.
Hey, man. Okay, so my pseudo rotary thing. Can I tell you about this?
Yeah.
So I was up here a few weeks ago, and I had my Skylark, and I was using the Tweed because I think I showed it on the pod, the Acorn solid state that I got.
Yeah.
So I was messing around with the solid state, which if you don't know, the solid state is a pedal that is a 10-watt, basically PV amp and a pedal, and it's got a speaker out on the side.
Yep.
And so I had the main output of the pedal going through the Poly Bebo, the really cool multi-effect, the touchscreen thing. And that was going into my Skylark. And then I had just the speaker out of the Acorn going into just the speaker of the Tweed. So it was like, that makes sense. It was replacing the Tweed amp with the Acorn, so to speak. So it's like a wet dry setup. And I turned on I believe it was a chorus. And with the two amps, they were at 90 degrees to one another in the room. So the Skylark was firing this way and the Tweed was firing this way. And when I turned on the chorus, it was on a really fast setting. And no joke, it was like I was sitting next to a Leslie because of the way the phase was happening in the room. It was a true, like I had to take a second and I had to unplug the Skylark because I thought that somehow the chorus effect was getting into the Tweed speaker because it was that apparent. Like it literally confused me for a minute. I was like, what is happening? And I was like, no, the Tweed speaker was dry, but just the phase happening in the chorusing from the Skylark gave me this fully three-dimensional stereo rotary thing. Literally like there was a Leslie in the room, and it was awesome.
That's cool. Isn't that fun when you discover that?
Phase, man.
It's like when you learn what frequency your door vibrates or something in your practice space. You're like,
or like what you find the resonant frequency of like your bathroom or something, and you just sit there and hum that frequency over and over. Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, getting into it, this episode, we're going to talk about getting a gig. Because one of our patrons had mentioned this. I made a post asking for some topics of discussion, and I can't find who asked it. But somebody asked, like, how do you go about finding people to play with, getting a gig? You know, what's your advice for landing a spot in a band? So you said you were just talking about this with some of your pals.
Yeah. So me and Chris and Phil, before we started work today, we were actually talking about this because yesterday, right before we left Nashville and came home, we went to the East Nashville Guitar Club. Have you heard about this?
Yes, I've seen photos on Facebook.
So Jack Roosh and Guthrie Trapp started this, and it's relatively new. If you're in the Nashville area and you're a guitar player, it's like once a month. And they're not sponsoring the show or anything. I just went and thought it was a cool thing. It's a Sunday jam at the Underdog in East Nashville from like 2 to 5. And we only had time to stop by for like 20 or 30 minutes, but we stuck our head in, and it was great, man. They had a pretty big turnout, and there was a band on stage, and it was just like a straight ahead jam. And what I noticed was there was a lot of young players there. Some of them were Belmont guys. I talked to a few of them.
Right.
And it was really cool to see, man. Like it was like a mostly young crowd or crowd of players that were like in the scene, trying to make it, trying to figure it out. And they had the space to get up on stage with a great rhythm section and just get reps. And I think especially when you're young, that's super important. And I think that's one of the best ways to try and land a gig. If you are in some kind of town or city where there's a jam happening, or there's an open mic, anything like that, where there's a group of musicians getting together to make music on a semi-regular basis, you should be there, because you have to be present to win,
100%. Yeah. I mean, I think that early on in anybody's career, that's all you can do is just go and be a face in the community and practice, But how do you, because it's been so long since I've been in a band, and I've never just auditioned for a band or joined something out of the blue that wasn't with people that I didn't already know. Like, have you gone down that journey for the stuff that you've been, have you always auditioned, or like how?
No, I've never done a straight ahead audition. I have helped like conduct auditions before. A few years ago with Muddy Magnolias, we needed to find a new drummer, and we held like 2 days of auditions, and we ended up going with someone that we knew, like a friend recommended. Guy named Timmy Jones. Shout out to Timmy. I think he's playing with Chris Tomlin now. But yeah, it's like you hear this talked about a lot, that it's all who you know, and it really is. At least in my experience, man. It's every gig, every opportunity that I've had, big and small, has all come from a recommendation, or a friend asking me, or a friend recommending me. And so that's why I always say, like, in this industry, building relationships is one of the most important things,
Yeah. And I think that finding, and oftentimes, if you're in a big area and there's jams and stuff, there's usually going to be some sort of Facebook group or some sort of group, online somewhere that you can like see when things are happening, and you can try to go and plug into the community. I think the biggest thing and the hardest thing for me, like doing everything that I've had to do in the past couple of years, is like getting over my shyness, and being able just to like go to a place and say hi and like plug in and not feel worried and panicked. And I think when you're, especially if you're like, if you're going to see Guthrie Trapp play, and undoubtedly there's going to be players in the room who can, on paper play circles around you. You cannot let that stop you from wanting to try to play music.
Dude, it's a real thing. The fear, like, when I graduated AIM, there was a jam happening in Atlanta. A guy named Francisco Vidal would host at his place called Tavern 99 down in Buckhead. And unfortunately, it's not still there. I wish it was, because it was like a Monday night open jam. And I met like people I'm still friends with, Benjamin Forehand, guys like that I met down there. The first time I ever saw David Ryan Harris play was at that jam. And it was cool because it was in like super open place where anyone could get up and you weren't going to get vibed. But I remember being so just terrified the first few times I went, and like actually getting the guts up to go and play, because you're in the room with players that can absolutely smoke you. But if it's a good jam, and I want to shout out the East Nashville Guitar Club, because I think they've done a good job of curating, of like making a space where it seems and feels really inclusive. Like, it doesn't matter how old you are or your skill level. Like, there were people up there that were playing that were pretty new, and they were kind of figuring it out, but then would get done, and the group of people there would applaud, and it was super supportive. And then you'd get someone up there that was like, could like really shred and kill it. And it was equally supportive. So I think finding the right jam, if you have options, if you live in a space where there's options, is really important, because sometimes it can be a little like you can get vibed pretty hard. But I think it is worth trying to set that fear aside, just get out there and do it,
Yeah. And, to that end, if you don't live in a large, metropolitan area, you might live, within driving distance. And for some of these things, it might be worth, especially if, you don't have this sort of opportunity to play with other human beings, to make a point to travel and do it. make a weekend of it or something so that you can just get that experience under your belt, because there is nothing like in the bands I've been in. There have been a few instances where I've played with people who spent their entire guitar playing career just playing in a bedroom, not with other human beings. And while usually it's okay, you can definitely tell when you're playing with someone who doesn't understand the function of being in a band.
Yeah.
And, that is, it can be really infuriating. And I'm sure you've dealt with this too, where you're playing with someone who, they're finally able to run, and they're just going to go as fast as they can, the loud, all the riffs, all the reverb. And it's like, hey, yo, we're playing, R&B tunes or something,
Yeah.
You just have to really, I don't know. That's something I think is very important.
The thing about that is there's only one way to learn that, especially when you're young. And the only way to learn it is to actually get up on stage and do that. And then figure out the hard way that's not, that's not the best way to do it. I think, honestly, this is what me and Chris and Phil were talking about this morning was when you're young, because we were kind of sharing some horror stories of, when I was 20, 21, just getting out and starting to play out around Atlanta. Like I would play a bar gig in Buckhead, sometimes 2 bar gigs in a night, go home, change my shirt Saturday night, get home at 4:30, 5 o'clock, change my shirt, jump back in my car and drive straight to sound check for a church gig on Sunday morning and play, 3 services and do that. And in some ways it was absolutely miserable, but in some ways I was like craving that and hungry for it, because what it did is it gave me those reps. It was just reps on stage. And, I've talked a little bit about my experience in the church world and kind of how it was really terrible in a lot of ways and really toxic in a lot of ways. And it's something I'll never go back to, but I am really thankful for the years that I spent playing at these mega churches, because for 3, 4, 5 days a week between rehearsals and services and sound checks and everything, I was on stage with pro players, like people that were 10, 15, 20 years older than me, guys that were, real players, especially the rhythm sections, the drummers and bass players, taught me a lot, man, a lot.
Sure. Well, talking about the gig thing or the cover gig thing, because obviously, unless you're playing music and you have friends or find someone who's doing original stuff, playing covers is going to be how you're going to cut your teeth.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that I see and I hear people ask a lot is, what songs do I need to know? And that is such a rabbit hole, but something that I think that when you want to start getting into this world, you really have to dive in and go to gigs and see what people are playing.
Yeah.
So you can start making a list of things that you need to have under your belt. And then also, listening to this music, you need to have some sort of knowledge of how to fake it.
Oh,
because being able to fake it, especially if there's another guitarist, I've gone to so many jams at local guitar stores and stuff, and I'll play, and then I'm going to walk away, and they're like, no, stay up here for this one. I'm like, I don't know this one. They're like, well, it's an E. I'm like, okay, well, I know E. So, I would just fake it and watch other musicians and try to pick up the chord progression and stuff if I couldn't just hear it. But the value of being able to know how to get around your instrument and be able to pick a key is so, it's so important.
Dude, I had it depends on the cover gig, because if you're playing like a wedding band, that's a very different situation than like a Friday, Saturday bar gig in like a college town, right?
100%.
Now, I never really did the wedding band thing. I've played a handful of weddings and I would fill in for friends, but it was a lot more high pressure, at least the situations that I found myself in, where it was like, these people are paying a lot of money for this band to be here and they want to hear these songs, and it needs to sound like the record and all this kind of stuff, where it was like pretty heavy. It wasn't just you need to know the songs. It was, okay, we're going to play whatever 40 songs tonight, and you need to know the guitar lines and the hooks, and the tone kind of needs to be right. And when you play the solo, it needs to be the solo, not
Yeah.
like you're not jamming over it. Like they want to hear the solo and all this kind of stuff. And that didn't really work for me. The other situation I found myself in a lot was that Buckhead Bar Band was literally the exact opposite. We never rehearsed ever. And every single time I played that gig, it was a different group of people, different band. Most people, it's like I would show up and we'd set up and start playing. I didn't know the bass player's name. And we would
Right.
play for 4 hours together. And the band leader would just call a tune, oftentimes a song I'd never heard of or something, and he would just go, he'd yell the changes out in the key. 6-4-1-5 and E, here we go. I was like, all right.
Right.
And it was actually a lot of fun, you know. But yeah, you're right. Like that being on those gigs kind of taught me the importance of knowing your fretboard, knowing your triads, knowing your major
Circle
and
of
minor
fifths.
pentatonics, your circle of fifths, like being able to get around that stuff real quickly. It's important, man.
It's a crash course, and I think it's something that everyone should experience, that panic of playing music with people that you might not know, playing a song you don't know. It's really it can lend itself to be really fun.
Oh, it was fun for yeah.
Do you have any terrible wedding band stories? That was another question people asked, our worst gig stories. But I have one of my worst gigs was at a wedding.
I don't have it because I didn't do enough wedding band things to have a terrible experience, but I want to hear yours.
Well, so I played music with a couple dudes who were from, I think they lived outside Murfreesboro, and I played one wedding with them, and it was just their guitarist dropped out. They had all been playing music together for ages. They were all friends, and I walked in. We all just like clicked and immediately became friends. We played one wedding. It was awesome. Went off without a hitch. And so like 6 months later, someone who attended that wedding wanted to hire us to play their daughter's wedding, and thought, sure, okay. They gave us the song list. It was all easy pop stuff, you know, Taylor Swift tunes, all this stuff. We needed a female singer, so Morgan came, and we got it. We practiced. It seemed like this is going to be easy. We're going to do our thing. We started going to the gig. We get a call that the place we were going to play, which was going to be outdoors, it started raining. So they're going to move everything inside a big metal barn, which
Sounds
that doesn't
great.
bode well. Yeah, it sounds like a gymnasium. So we set up there, and my best friend was filling in on bass, Ben. And Ben, you can just like, you don't even have to tell him what key. He'll just like, okay, I got it. And he's a great bassist. He was the first one there, and they were asking for all our where the big PA, where could they plug in their iPod and all this stuff. It was like the first thing they wanted to know. And so he was like, oh, this is going to be fun. Mm-hmm. We played every song that they requested. They might have danced to one and just stood there and looked at us the whole rest of the time. And we were doing a really good job. They just hated us. And it got to the point where I was wise enough to bring everything to plug in an iPod to our PA. And we just played Cupid Shuffle for like half an hour. And that was the only thing that made them happy. It was, and we still got paid, but like we drove hours to get to this thing, and they hated us every moment, every lick.
I can't. The wedding band thing for me is just not in the cards, man. I couldn't do it. Even when I was like really hustling for gigs and trying to get everything I could, the wedding band thing was always the last thing I would try and look for because it didn't vibe with me.
Well, the other like Morgan, is such a ham, like, cause she was in cover bands and like super professional stuff. And she just wants to interact with the audience. And she just had to like in between every song, she's like, okay, who's ready to get out on the dance floor? And like, no one was dancing. And then the other singer guy, he just got super drunk and like in the middle of a song just walked off. And we were like, okay, this is our gig.
Dude, at least there was music playing. I went to a wedding one time where it was a dry wedding and for religious purposes, and they had a band, but they didn't, like, dancing wasn't encouraged. Like,
oh, it was a town in Footloose. Is that where it was?
Yeah, kind of is that kind of vibe. So, yeah, I think one of my worst gig stories that comes to mind is July, 2011 or 12. I got this call to play with this country artist, and she was like trying to be an original, country artist thing. And at the time I was really leaning into I wanted to play with singer-songwriters and get into the original music. So I was excited and got booked by this drummer I went to AIM with, and we had a few rehearsals, and it was not good. Like the music wasn't great, but it was a cool gig and everything. And I kept asking, like, what's the gig? What are we doing? They're like, oh, it's a festival. We're doing this festival. It's like, all right, cool. South Georgia festival. What it actually was a mud bog park.
Yeah.
In the middle of literally nowhere and somewhere in Georgia. I mean, we were like an hour south of Macon, and I had like my truck, which is 4-wheel drive. I got stuck trying to get to the stage to load in. Like the stage was just this wooden platform in the middle of a field of just mud, and they had like mud drag racing and this giant lake that these massive monster trucks were just like driving through and stuff. It honestly looked like a hell of a good time. But it was July in the middle of Georgia, so it was 1 billion degrees and 1 billion% humidity.
Man.
They had no water, so it was like I loaded in, got all my gear set up, was super hot, and I asked some guy on stage, like, hey man, you guys have any water? And he's like, no, we've got Natty Light though. It's like, I'm gonna die if I don't get water. So we had to leave and go to a gas station, get water, got stuck again coming back in, had to get I had mud under my truck there's probably still mud up under the truck. It was so bad that like driving home, my whole truck was shaking because I had mud stuck on the inside of the wheel wells and stuff.
Off balance.
And then, so we finally start playing, and of course, it sounded terrible. I mean, it was god awful. Didn't sound good at all. And then it just poured, just dumped rain. So it was so bad. Some kid got lost, so they stopped our show to get on the vocal mic and say, hey, we're looking for this kid. Everyone stop what they're doing. It was a whole thing. So we just decided to kill it. We're done. Loaded out in the rain. My amp, all my gear got soaked. And then, drove home covered in mud, sweat, dehydrated. It was awful. So she asked me for another gig, and after that, and I was like, I'm all good, man.
Word to the wise, really vet whoever is inviting you to these gigs if you don't know them.
Yeah. I learned a few valuable lessons on that gig. But, I mean, to get back to the thing, it's like you kind of, especially when you're young, you sort of need to say yes to almost everything, unless you know it's going to be a bad situation, right? Like, you need the reps, man. Like, I can't emphasize that enough. You really need as much experience as you can getting on stage. And, you know, even when they suck, they're valuable.
That's right. There's a point where like getting paid in experience is fine, like in the beginning.
Yeah.
That doesn't last forever.
No.
But yeah, man, I've definitely done my fair share of just trying to make it work. And when I was a kid, I mean, I grew up in Sparta, which is a tiny little town. And luckily there was a college town right next door. And so I went and jammed with, you know, people all the time, just trying to figure out like what kind of music I wanted to play. And, you know, that's a valuable thing because there was just so many like college kids and kids, you know, right out of high school wanting to start bands. And most of it was terrible, but you don't know. And you might be setting yourself up if you don't give into those opportunities from meeting some, you know, people who could become lifelong friends, even if you don't end up enjoying playing music with them. Some of my best friends are people that I met like in my days of just dicking around town playing guitar.
Dude, you don't know what's going to come out of it. Like I ended up, honestly, like I wouldn't be on YouTube or have done any of the things in my career had I not taken one of those random Buckhead bar gigs, because it was one of the first ones I took. The drummer on that gig, he and I, like 8 months after that, he reached out to me and he was like, hey, I've got this singer-songwriter and he needs a guitar player I'm playing with. This guy named Carl Dillon. And so I went up and I started playing for Carl. And it was through Carl that like I got to go on my first tour ever. I got to, like, we did this battle of the bands in Salt Lake City and won and got to open for the Beach Boys on July 4th. I met Rick Beato through that because Carl did a record at Rick's And that was my first time in a recording studio. And then through that, I asked them if I could intern, and they said yes. And then that launched the whole thing with Rick. And it was through the Rick connection that I met Noah and started playing with Good Trouble. And then that's where I got into the Muddy Magnolias gig and started going up to Nashville. And then that whole thing, literally you can trace everything that's happened for me into one shitty dive bar Buckhead, Georgia gig that I don't even know if I got paid for. Maybe I got paid $50 or $60,
right?
You know? But it happened from one gig, one relationship, and it all just went from there.
So yeah, so if we have to give people bullet points as to how to get a gig, like if you don't have a band, is there anything you would say to people who have a band on how to like play gigs in the beginning? Is it just blanket everybody with your press kit and stuff? Or?
I don't know, because I've never been on like the booking side of things. That's
right.
a real, just big unknown for me. I've never had to like hustle and book shows and do all that stuff. So
when I was a kid, the first big purchase I ever made for myself was a PA. Granted, it was a Fender Passport PA, which was like, I think it was 150 watts,
okay,
75 watts per side. So not a whole lot of power, but, when having that, we just did everything ourselves. Like we would like book little, if there was a place where you could have events and it was like, $100 or whatever, you just book it and do it yourself. I mean, super punk rock, but I think, if that's what's going to feed, you creatively, artistically, then you just kind of have to chase it and do it and make it happen for yourself. No one's ever going to give you anything. Or at least you can't expect anyone to. So I'm of the mindset that just make it happen. So, but anyway, bullet points for getting the gig: know your stuff, know the gig. And we've talked about that a little bit. Don't bring too much gear. Be open to going and doing literally everything. And what else?
Well, I would to put a finer point on the gear side, like bring the appropriate rig for the gig. I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but because sometimes, like, especially as you get older and more experienced and you're getting bigger opportunities, like sometimes the thing is like you need to bring your big boy rig. And I would add to that, like when it comes to knowing your stuff, it's not just music and theory and like knowing the parts, it's knowing your gear and knowing how to get good tone. That was something that I spent a lot of time working on because I was interested in it, and it landed me gigs because, especially singers and artists, they don't necessarily care how fast you can play or like how impressive you are as a player. They care how you sound, and they care like, can he make the guitar sound like it sounds on my record? And can he play the part like it sounds on the record? Or can he do something that sounds really cool and is inspiring? And when you can do that stuff and when you sound good, that's what people notice. And then honestly, like you will get hired if you sound good. And half of sounding good is having good tone. So know your gear. It doesn't have to, that doesn't mean you have to spend a ton of money on like a bunch of boutique shit. It means take what you have and really work on and learn how to get the best sounds you can out of what you have access to.
100%. It's awesome. Well, I think that should give hopefully some insight to the people who have had that question rattling around in their brain.
Yeah. I think
Chill of the week.
Well, one thing I'll add. It really is, it comes down to relationships.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be a networking thing. Like it shouldn't be I'm going to go to this jam and I'm going to make a hang with these people because I know that they're doing this thing. And maybe if I like become friends with them, then I'll be able to go do this thing, because people see through that. It's about building genuine relationships with people that you like, people that you connect with, and being just a good, reliable friend. When you do get those opportunities, you show up prepared. You're on time. Your gear works. You know the parts. You're reliable. All of those things matter. When you're on the road, you're easy to live with. You are not causing problems. You're not making everyone late. You're not a slob. Like all of these
shower.
things, yeah, you shower, which is a thing. Like all of these things matter. They all matter.
Yeah.
And if you want to do this, you want to take this seriously, that's all part of it. It's not just, knowing your triads or whatever.
That's right. Pro gear, pro attitude.
Hey, man. Brought to you by your friends here at Dipton Tone, brother.
Well, now we shall.
Now we'll shill. Now we shall shill. I got to take a picture of mine because it's already like hooked up.
Okay. Well, I'll go first. So, you called this Tony the Tiger.
And I said the Tony the Tiger burst.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now I've just started calling it Tony the Tiger. I got this a while back. I've not shown this on the pod yet.
No.
This is my Paul's guitar. It's a 2022 10 top. This was at Groon's, and man, I absolutely adore this guitar. I know that you aesthetically did not, but hand to God, when you started playing this on the PRS video that we did together, the tone that came from this in comparison to your Les Paul, it was just like, it was exactly what I wanted this guitar to do. The taut low end, the perfect balance string to string. And I genuinely think, I'm not a huge fan of the coil splits. They work, but I'm not over the moon about it. But I think as an instrument, this guitar is absolutely crazy. And you know what's funny? Before we did the thing at Carter, and I've gotten some messages about this, asking what kind of videos you want to see from me, and people said no more PRS content, which is like, what? Just like who cares? If you don't like it, move along. But I love this guitar.
I mean, look, I understand. Aesthetically, it hurts to look at for me.
It does not. You're exaggerating.
It's kept me up at night knowing that I've been in the same room as that thing. No, I think I said this in the video. I was like, yes, that is a great guitar. Objectively, it's a great guitar. It is. It does that thing. It does that super hi-fi thing. And I'm happy that you have it. And I'm not fucking around. I'm happy that you have it. And I'm happy that it makes you like all giddy inside when you look at it. And you look at it and just think to yourself, it's great. Sorry. All right. Anyways, but yeah. I just didn't. It didn't do it for me. Like,
that's fine. It's fine. It's fine. And it's funny. That whole video has led to so many conversations and so many people saying, why didn't you bring Rhett a DGT? Surely he would like a DGT. It's like, yeah, it's not about that. It's not about like, oh, he didn't play the right guitar. It's just that not everybody likes his stuff, but I like it.
But
so
here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. That is unique to PRS. Okay. And I don't think this is necessarily anything that PRS themselves did or Paul did. I think it's just sort of the character and the way the cookie is crumbled with PRS owners. They're kind of the Tesla of the guitar world. Like they're like you kind of have.
It's not like
no.
For 40 years.
No. I don't mean in terms of like what they make or what they do. I'm talking about in terms of their fan base, and it's not everybody. Not everyone who drives a Tesla is like a Tesla bro, right? But there are Tesla bros that live and die by the brand. And there's PRS bros that live and die by the brand, because I see them in my comments sections. Anytime I talk about PRS and I share my opinion of their guitars, not their amps, I do genuinely love their amps. The HDR-X20 kills, okay? But their guitars, I say, yes, they're great. They're very well made. They're amazing guitars that make me feel nothing when I play them. And it's consistent. Yeah. And then people are like, well, you're objectively wrong because you don't understand what a good guitar is. And if you did understand what a good guitar is, you would only play PRS like I only play PRS. And I've bought every PRS, and I've gotten rid of every single guitar that ever existed because PRS. And it just, and that's not you, thankfully. But they're just kind of the Tesla.
I think that
of the
community
guitar
exists. Like the majority of people were bagging on him.
I don't see that when I talk about Telecasters or even Les Pauls or P basses or Gretsch or Strats. That it's only when PRS comes up these people come out of the woodwork.
Well, I think maybe there. I mean, every brand has a rabid community, but I'd say if you chose anyone outside the big two, there's definitely going to be people that if you seemingly attacked or disagreed or whatever.
Okay, hold on.
Not
hold
that
on.
you attacked.
I didn't attack anybody.
I'm just saying. Although I don't think they're cookie cutter. Every guitar, if it's made by a machine, is some sort of cookie cutter thing. But like, they're going to come out of the woodwork, and be like, you're an idiot.
I just think the brand loyalty thing is weird to me. I think play what you want to play, and like what you want to like. Like I said it in my video, and I'll say it again here to your face. I'm genuinely happy that you have found those guitars and that they make you happy to play. Seriously, I'm not joking around. They're not my thing, but that's okay. Just because they're not my thing doesn't mean that they suck. We can poke fun and we can joke, but they're great guitars. I don't like them, and I'm not wrong for not liking them. Just like you're not wrong for liking them. I don't like the idea of the PRS thing being like, yeah, they're all basically the same. They all feel the same. They all sound the same. You just go to the wall and pick your color. And I get the response that one like thing that I saw in our video was, hey, I don't have the luxury of being able to go and play X amount of Les Paul to find my one. And I like the fact that I can go to any guitar store and grab any PRS and I know that it's going to be great. Yes, 100%. I hear you, and that is a valid thing, and I think that is you should play PRS for that reason. Well, but I'm not. But that's not my thing. But to that
end, though, but the argument is not that. Like you couldn't go. Like if I went and bought an earlier Paul's guitar or went and played them, they wouldn't be the same. The same if like you went and played like a custom 24 from 1988 and played a new one. They're going to be different. Just like your guitar, your Les Paul is it's like 20 something years old now. Mm-hmm. Like I feel like what they have done with the fact that you can go and consistently bank on, you could take to the bank that every guitar hanging on the wall, if it's the same model, should be within a very small percentage of one another. But that's the thing that every other brand is striving to do and can't, and that's the thing that I think is
but I don't care. Like to me, it's like, I don't care if Gibson or Fender or Novo can't make a guitar that's that consistent, because it's, to me, I'm not worried about every other custom 24 or Saris J. I'm worried about my Saris J, and did I find the right Saris J or Les Paul for me? And that's what I'm after. I'm not worried about how consistent my Les Paul is compared to every other Les Paul that is on the market today. I don't give a shit because I found my Les Paul.
No, I know, but like the saying that like you're like if going on the journey of finding the one for you is true for everything, even if these are all consistent, because you'd still have to like find the one. But anyway,
but no, because the whole thing with PRS is that and this is a big reason why John Mayer switched to PRS. And again, I understand. I don't think it's a bad thing, but knowing that he can just like walk into any store, David Grissom is the same way. Walk into any store and pick up any DGT off the wall, and it's going to do all the things he needs to do. It's great. I understand it personally. I don't like it. I don't care about that. I'm like, I'm not a collector. I'm not, like we talked about yesterday, the vintage stuff. I just want a good tool. And when I find the right tool, I found the right tool, and I don't care that, there's 50 other Les Pauls that all sound different than mine or whatever. It's just, I do think that the PRS, like the fandom though, to me, it comes across as like, they're like the Tesla of and it's a very vocal minority of PRS owners, but dude, we're going to get it on this video now. The arguments in the comments about, how every other brand is inferior because of PRS, and it's like,
don't anyone think that. Paul would not say that.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that of PRS as a company or Paul as a person. I'm saying that of like the culture of some PRS owners is that way.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. My show.
Plop. Plop.
Oh, you got it in. Look at you. I didn't think you were going to do that. My God. I thought we were going to have to do this in post. Okay, so this happened yesterday at Carter Drink.
Mm-hmm.
We were packing up to leave, and I saw this thing walking in. I was like, oh, it looks like an old projector amp or something. And talked to Noah up there at Carter, and I was like, hey, man, I really want to play this. Can I check this out? So he hooked it up for me, and I literally turned it on. I played 3 notes and said, yeah, I'm buying that. I don't know what it is. And Carter doesn't know what it is or who built it. The shell is an old Masco like projector amp or PA amp. It's got 2 microphone inputs and a phono input and a tone control. And they said that this guy came in who built it. He built a guitar amp out of it. Said, like, can you sell this thing? And they said, yeah. And then I bought it. And that's all I know about it. It's 25 watts. It sounds like a Tweed amp on steroids. It's got a ton of gain. It does that low end thump thing that like big Marshalls do, which I don't know how he got out of a 25 watt amp. The 2 volume controls are interactive. It's wicked.
Yeah, it's basically like a Tweed Deluxe with the 6 L6s.
Yeah, it's heavy bike, man. It'll get clean. Like I was playing around with it this morning, and it's got some nice clean tones, but really it's a gainy amp.
Yeah,
and it was a good price, $650. I bought it, and it looks cool. It's loud. It seems well built. I might want to pull the chassis apart and look at it. But yeah, man.
Neat.
If you know who built this amp, let me know. Someone send me an email because I'm genuinely curious. I'd like to talk to the person, whoever it was.
Well, awesome. Well, before we go, we got to thank Sweetwater for sponsoring this episode of Dipped in Tone. Remember to go to sweetwater.com/dippedintone. Check out their gear exchange. See all the fun used things, guitars, pedals, amps, mics, cymbals. They got everything on there.
Yeah, or if you got your eye on a new piece of gear that Sweetwater sells and you're looking to sell some stuff, you can get a little ahead by selling your used gear there and turn that into money that you can then use on Sweetwater. So
that's right.
Yeah, links all down below, all that stuff. Thanks to Sweetwater.
Be sure to go to... Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry. Sweetwater.com, Dipped in Tone. Thanks for sponsoring today's episode.
Yes.
And also, Patreon.
Yes.
Like I said, join in while we are taping live on our Discord. Links are down below. We got a few different tiers now. We've got merch on the way, right? Are we still where are we at with merch stuff?
We do have a store. There should be a little bar on the YouTube channel with some of the merch, and it should be linked in the comments. We're gonna be designing more things. I have a shirt coming that you, Rhett, are gonna love, and be sure to subscribe. The YouTube channel has been growing by leaps and bounds, but it's been every person that subscribed just helps us just as much as everything else does. So like it, subscribe it, do the whole thing.
Yep. And if you're listening, Apple, you can leave us a rating, leave us a comment, Spotify, all that stuff. We really appreciate the support, guys. And we'll see y'all real soon.
Bye.